I would assume that's probably how dogs live, right? It's just like just pure. It's just hedonism,
Yeah,
I guess.
I
I
think
can't
so.
imagine they don't have any retirement plans, right? They're just like,
Yeah, it's just sort of a moment to moment thing. Like, I think so. Like
uh-huh.
this, she just
What is that little
sitting there
monster doing? Look at
licking.
she is so cute. She's so cute.
She's
You
very cute. She's very licky. I think old
uh-huh.
chihuahuas start licking
Yeah, yeah.
everything.
And look, she's
And
boarding out a movie. Good for
yeah,
her. Oh
yeah,
my god.
exactly. Yeah,
She
she's really doing it, you know?
she never stops working, Anne.
Her parents were too supportive.
It's a real nightmare.
It
And
really is.
I have terrible news for you.
Yes.
You have just passed on. I'm very
Hell yeah.
sorry. You have gone somewhere to meet
Okay.
your maker, whoever they may be in your mind. And they say to you, Anne, I will answer one question that you've always wanted to know about your life specifically or about life in general. You can
Oh
ask
man.
follow up questions, but you cannot ask for more questions.
Okay. So it just has to be one specific
Yes, but
area.
one question of something that you've always wanted to know specifically about your life. And I will say this,
Uh-huh.
it's something I'm starting to add. Much like they tell you when you smell wine, don't think about it too much. Say the first thing that comes to your mind. And then because there's going to be a chance later to find out other things.
Okay. Should I just say it now?
Yeah,
Okay. What I mean, okay, well, quick question about the question. Can
of
it
course.
be does it have to be about my life or can it be something I'm confused about and want to know?
It can be either or. It can be about your life specifically or about life in general, something you've always wanted to know. Who really shot Kennedy? Whatever you want to ask.
Right. I want to know what happened to the Dyatlov Pass incident. What happened to that group of hikers in 1959 in the Ural Mountains that caused 9 of them to die of a force that was well, I mean, it was during the Cold War, so like all the
Uh,
details we've gotten are filtered through that.
Dan, and I have so many questions. Please explain what this is. What is, enlighten me. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm fascinated already.
In 1959, a
Hmm.
group of 9 experienced hikers from Russia went on a trip that passed through the Ural Mountains, which is a mountain range in Russia, which one of the mountains I think is named like Mountain of the
Hmm.
Dead Mountain, and one of the like local Mansi tribes uh, held it as like I think they revered it, but also feared it. But they were going through this mountain. They never showed up to their other side because they had reported, I think, where their group was going to go and when they should be expected. Never showed up. Months go by. They're found all of their corpses um, around, I think, like the radius of where their tent was, but their tent they had broken out from the inside. They had like emergency like scrambled out. Like the going theory is there was an avalanche or
Okay.
they heard an avalanche and that there was a let me see what this phrase was because it's really upsetting.
So
Uh
as you're doing that, I'm sorry. So like, there's a tent, and they're all kind of around the tent. Their bodies are found around the tent.
yeah, to various degrees of um dressed and of what they were doing. Like 2 of them had clearly gotten away and had started a fire but then died of something, and then one of them had a whole bunch of radiation. One of them was missing a tongue. Some of them had broken ribs but zero abrasions, which is something I guess that can happen, if a corpse is mauled by an animal, let's
Hmm.
say, or like stepped on or something. Like there's plenty of like natural things, but then every single theory, I mean, every conspiracy that could happen is applicable to here. There's aliens, there's government tests, there's
Hmm.
Yeti, there's, if you want to believe anything, you can project it onto this
It
one
is
incident.
a conspiracy theorist's dream. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
you can whatever you want to see in there, you're going to
Yes.
see.
Uh
Uh,
huh.
can you tell me? So some of the theories are a Yeti got them, or
Yes, there
uh
are some theories where, all right, so let me see if I can find that exact phrase. Okay, so six of the group members died of hypothermia and three of fatal injuries. There were no indications of other people nearby. The tent had been ripped open from within. The victims had died 6 to 8 hours after their last meal. Traces from the camp showed that all group members left the campsite of their own accord on foot. Some levels of radiation were found on one of the victims' clothing. To dispel the theory that attacked by the indigenous Mansi people, let's see, the injuries could not have been caused by human beings because the force of the blows had been too strong and no soft tissue had been damaged. There were no survivors, and the release of documents was uh, released documents contain no information about the condition of the skiers' internal organs. Um, I'm trying
so
to
the
find this.
tent is ripped out. So they did not even use the door. It's like they exploded
Mhm.
out of the tent,
They exploded out of the tent.
or fought their way out of it. Okay.
Yeah, the one
Uh,
of the explanations right now, the leading one is that there was an avalanche, and yet they all got out. Like what?
uh
I don't know. There's just so many.
what do you think happened? Like, what do you think happened, and what do you want to have happened?
I think okay. I I feel okay. So just a quick few more details about how
Please.
strange this was.
Yes.
Hypothermia could cause the paradoxical undressing, but they had stripped off, some of them had stripped off their clothes,
Hmm.
which is something that happens, I think. There was a lot of speculation of military tests, radiological weapons. Let's see. God, I'm looking for this one really upsetting phrase. It was like it's some sort of force. I'm sorry. This makes for a horrible podcasting. Someone just looking for a word. You're welcome to
No, no,
cut
this is the
this
goal
out.
of my whole thing. It's I just want you to search for a word and find it, and then
Oh,
we're gonna end it.
I found it. I
Yes,
found it. A compelling unknown force.
that is
A com-
terrifying.
yes, compelling unknown force.
Compelling makes me seem like it's like I had to watch it. It was charming. Like it almost makes me feel like it was just
Yes,
a
and
real lady
enigmatic.
killer. Yeah. Oh, I couldn't resist when it came by, that Yeti. So what do you think one of those is what occurred?
I mean, my like most reasonable and least interesting part of my brain goes, they were afraid of an avalanche, and then all of the weird shit that happened afterwards is just happenstance, like maybe a something ate her tongue, something,
Yeah.
some, for some reason there's radiation on this guy's clothing, for some reason their skin is a little too yellow, like people who saw the bodies said that their skin was still yellow. But at the same time, it's like, this is 1959, this
Hmm.
is Cold War
Yeah.
Russia. This is, there are so many filters to put this through. The like part of me that's very into, I guess the conspiracy theorist in me would be like, hmm, military testing was happening and they just stumbled upon it somehow. But I
Hmm.
don't know what that means. If someone went, what do you mean military testing? I'd be like, I don't
Like a
know.
weapon, or a chemical, or I understand that
Hmm.
you're saying I don't know, and I'm prodding
No,
you to be
no.
like, but what is the thing?
Truly,
Um,
I think it's like some people are saying that it was infrasound, which is a certain vibration of of
is that what
noise
they
that
use
makes
in
you
Cuba, that they
nauseous.
think they've used, like the sonic weapon that some diplomats American diplomats in Cuba have said that they've suffered this from some sort of weapon, and they can't name it, and they think it's like sonic, some sort of
Oh
sound. Have you heard
shit.
about this in the
I
past
have
couple of years?
not.
You got to get on
No.
there. This could be just an extension of your. It's a compelling force, and they can't stop dealing with it. What is it about this event that resonates with you? That's what you'd want to know. That you want to know what really happened.
I think, I mean, part of it must be that so many other people want to know, and that so many other people have dedicated their much more expertise than me and much more scientific
Mhm,
minds and have been there and have talked to people who were like around and like there has been research and I so there's the part of me that's like I want to know because people want to know sort of
mhm.
the this
Is
is
the
why
mystery appealing to you? Because it seems
uh
such a strange way to die?
Yeah, it I think it's that, and I think it's also just like there's something alluring about people who have in their own volition thrown themselves to the extreme weather conditions that they would have
Mhm,
uh encountered here and the extreme exertion and vulnerability like Everest and going to the like uh to the arctic poles and stuff
mhm.
like that has always like interested me because it's so much there's I don't think it's the same in this but there's so much hubris involved.
Yeah, it does seem what are we proving?
Uh-huh.
What happens when we do that thing? Yes, you did climb this thing. Well, I mean, everything can be broken down to there's really no fucking point of doing that, but those do seem like the extent of um hubris would be the correct word or pointlessness, ego, I don't know. Um so this event to you kind of symbolizes something like that? Is that what you're saying? Or you're just interested in like you're what I'm hearing from you is it seems like a lot of people want to know if was this extreme weather condition event and it's unexplained. Is it like a confluence of these three things that's interesting to you?
Yeah, I think it's the like the last the most the last bit of believing in magic in me.
Uh-huh.
I think that hasn't been crushed by the universe is
Yeah.
what if magic could be cynical and bad and horrible to people, but
Yeah.
if then this would be an example of a compelling unknown force. Not that I think it was magic, just that I think it was out of easy explanation. Like the government if this would happen in America, the government would react the same. We would love to explain this in a way that would make people shut the fuck up. We would just go, it was an avalanche. And yet people are still like, yeah, was it? But
Oh, I
also, I know that there's flat earthers, so who gives a shit, you know?
no, but what you're saying is I love what you're saying. So it's like it offers like still a possibility for not the divine, but something beyond what we know. And what you're saying,
Yeah,
not necessarily magic, but like an explanation that is
yeah.
not simple or not
And honestly, if it's an
science.
explanation that's dumb, where it's
Mhm.
like they all told scary stories, and then
Yeah,
in the middle of the night, one of them freaked the rest of them out so
yeah.
effectively that for no reason beyond human error, they all happened to die of hypothermia that night because they were so scared about what Igor said. Like
I lo they're
that's
all in the
great.
tent after they've told these stories. Igor wakes up at 3 in the morning, makes this terrifying
Yes.
sound. They explode out of the tent. One hits a
Uh-huh.
tree. One of them
Yep.
takes off all their clothes because they think they're being chased. Yeah.
Yes,
So it was all just a
exactly.
prank that went
Like,
awry.
that's as interesting to me because there's
Yeah.
no symmetry in that either. There's no like, and this is the lesson we learn from this incident. There's nothing to be known except
Yeah.
that we don't know shit.
Yes. That feels so does is the magic of it in general, would you say, like, do you like those explanations? Do you like the idea that there are things beyond what we can understand? Is there something interesting about that or desirous about that to you?
I guess, but at the same time, I can't buy into it. I can only buy into there isn't a definitive answer. I can buy into that can still be argued that it was something besides an avalanche because of these things that would have appeared if there were an avalanche and that didn't appear or
Mhm.
whatever. That being said, I'm also down for like if someone listening to this was like, actually, it definitely was an avalanche, and everything else is just people wanting to believe that there's something more interesting that happened to these people. But I, yeah, I guess sorry, I keep going in the same circle of like, but I think there could be something else, and I don't know why, but I want it to be true.
Let's say this. Okay, let you tell you. Okay, you've gone up to the maker. The maker
Okay.
has said to you it was an avalanche. How do you feel about this explanation?
Mm. I mean, it's still a tragedy, and it's a disappointment, I think, for it's a disappointment for me as an audience member, but it's also like a tragedy of 9 young lives that were
Sure.
lost. But they were all they were very, very skilled, and they
Hmm.
didn't die of the avalanche itself. It seems that they died afterwards, which makes me like, well, I don't know shit about anything. I don't know anything about anything. If an
Yeah.
avalanche almost hit me, I would die of being like, did you guys hear what happened? And then getting exhausted from telling people about it
Yeah.
before I got food again. Like, I know nothing.
So it's part that they have this expertise and yet they died anyway.
Yeah, they were in the best position to get through this. They're young, they're experts, they're fit. They were keeping really specific logs of what was
Hmm.
happening. They were keeping there's photos of their journey up until that day. There I mean it's just sort of it's just it seems unfair, and I know there's no such thing as fairness at all, but I'm just interested in what the fuck it was. And
I
if
think
it
I
was an avalanche, I'd be like, yeah, I I guess that's how humbling it is to be human.
yeah.
Fucking snow got you. Fuck.
Yeah, snow got him. What can you do? Um, I love what you're saying. This sounds like to me. You know, when you hear someone who passes away, people immediately want to know what happened. Like the first question is,
Yeah,
especially when it's someone who is younger or someone who is like apparently healthy. And I
yeah.
think part of that, not a large part of that, is how do I avoid the thing that they did that ended their life? You know what I'm saying? Like that is why
Yeah.
we ask it, isn't it?
Yeah. And maybe part of why I'm so interested in this is because I'm like, I could not have done any better. I couldn't have done half as well as they did. I get cold in California.
Yeah.
Like I would die immediately. And yet these like really brave, really strong, very experienced hikers had everything going for them and then nothing to explain why they weren't able to do it. And it's just I think maybe it's just like my own ego and hubris that's affected because I'm like, "Oh, but if I were a hiker, I'd be like them. And if I was like them, I'd be fucking unstoppable," which that doesn't track.
But
That's my own this says more about me than anything, I think,
uh,
but
I think this says just, hopefully it says something about you. We're only having a conversation about you. But um, what the I'm going to get back to where I want to go with this. The idea that uh, they were at their peak, and if it were you at your peak, you would not. Hopefully, you would not have died from that, or hopefully, you would have been okay. Is that what you're kind of? What I'm hearing from you. Let me
or
just get more specifically to it. Like what I'm hearing is, it's very humbling and disheartening to think, no matter how well you prepare, you can and how good you are, you can still fucking die from something, and you will die from
yeah,
something probably
yeah.
stupid. Like probably
So
like you're
dumb.
just like reaching down to grab your phone charger and you fucking go in the next lane and then you're
Mhm.
broadside and like
Uh,
and you're
yeah.
just an idiot who did it and these people were fully prepared and they couldn't even beat death.
Yes.
Is that part of it?
Yes. They couldn't beat death, and we couldn't even figure out what version of death beat them. Like, there is it isn't
Yeah.
even the thing where it's like, yeah, I mean, you go near that kind of mountain, you're gonna risk this kind of fate. Like,
Hmm.
it's I guess any mountain has this kind of thing. If there can be snow on a mountain, you can get an avalanche. I grew up in Colorado. There's
uh,
no way I would survive in the wilderness. But the thing of yeah, I think I don't know why, but I want to know what the fuck happened simply because it would mean I I'd be able to imagine it and they'd feel I think that if I died in a really weird way, I'd feel so lonely while I died because I'd be like, no one will know what this moment was like.
I love that you're first of all super calm. You're just like you're just kind of like giving into it. You're like the worst part is no one will know my pain,
Yeah,
or
no
no
one
one
will
will.
know this crazy shit happened, and they'll all
Uh
be like, "It was probably just an avalanche," and it's
yeah.
like, what if they got eaten? I mean, I'm not, like, super compelled by cryptids, but if it was a Yeti,
Wh-
then, like, that is really
Wait,
interesting.
what are cryptids?
They're just, like, humanoid, supernatural creatures like Yeti or
Uh,
Bigfoot
okay.
or, the New Jersey Monster or,
What's the New Jersey Monster? Just like hanging out in Trenton, just like what the fuck are you talking about?
Let me see if this is
What?
a thing.
You know the New Jersey Monster.
Oh, it's sorry, it's called the Jersey Devil, but I guess it's probably not a cryptid because it looks like it's not, human shaped, but there's a picture that was taken in Southern New Jersey, I guess.
Uh huh.
There's a creature of Southern New Jersey and Philadelphia folklore, uh, that is just a little creeper. I don't really know that much about it.
Um,
'Cause I'm not really that interested in just, like, straight up monsters. Well, I am. They're interesting,
you
but
just named a bunch, so you can't be like, nah, I'm not really into these things, but these are the ones I'm not really into. So yeah, it's okay that you are, but what you're saying is that doesn't seem like an interesting explanation to you.
yeah, I just wanna know.
Would you? So, but you were saying if it were an avalanche, you would kind of feel disappointed because it
Yeah.
doesn't have that magic component, or because it's um too simple, it's too scientific. It's too their death is not that special anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be the sunken cost fallacy of having spent, like, years wondering what this is, and
This
then
better
find
fucking
out.
turn out. I bankrupted my life to figure out how they died. You guys better have died in a fascinating manner, or I will be this.
I
Uh,
know, and it's so voyeuristic and it's so shitty that I'm like, here's this interesting, funny thing, and it's like 9 people died. I think it's more. I hope that I'm not coming off as blithe about like the fact that their deaths were obviously pretty bad.
Oh, I don't think
Um,
that's the case at all. I think what I find interesting about it is you also said there no one's going to know. Like imagine being in that situation and you are
mhm,
like it is like some sort of um, government weapon, and like no one's going to know, and that's one of the worst parts about it. But don't you
yeah,
feel that way about any time anyone dies in the sense of like you're always you can't fully articulate what you're going through, I'd assume. So it is
yeah,
such a lonely experience. I'd
yeah.
assume that like to me it just doesn't feel much different from dying alone in a hospital bed and you still can't articulate like what is happening to you.
I wonder if that's what it is that allures me is that you still can't articulate it and yet there's something unusual besides the fact that this is an inescapable reality we all face at some point in our lives and we must face alone. like
Yeah.
yeah, no, there isn't a good argument for it being different from any other death. Like it's yeah,
Do you think, can I ask you personally, would you rather have a death that is exciting? And by that I mean for others to be like, it is nuts. Did you hear what happened to Anne? Like, mind blowing. She somehow got shot out of a cannon. No one knows how she got hit. And then she smashed against the Empire State Building. It was bananas. Like, or, do you know what I'm saying? Or like to be one of these
yeah,
hikers. Is that the kind of death you'd want? Or is it,
I don't know. I guess part of me wouldn't. I don't want to experience it, but if I'm gonna be dead, like, no, I mean, I'm not adventurous or courageous or foolish enough to like be like, yeah, you know what I'm gonna do is just catapult myself into space, and that's a story for everyone else because that's
yeah,
very. I'm too hedonistic. I want to keep enjoying grilled cheeses every day. Like I want to
yeah.
keep enjoying what it's like to fall asleep. Like it's all very nice, and I'm cozy in my existence, but I
But if you did,
do.
if you those are that you would pick to like be catapulted, but like you can imagine there people who were on this trip did not enter it thinking this is gonna be a great story when we die at the end of it. Like, so you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, there's no forethought. Do you think they rather would have chosen to like die, 30 years later in a nursing home when their brain just goes, yeah,
I don't know. I'm just thinking about the Challenger exploding and
yeah,
how that must have been like an insane death. Like, just like, I guess it might be just the part of me that needs attention or approval, where it's like, wow, that death, that really killed you, huh? Like,
uh-huh.
woof. That, wasn't just time. It
Other
was
other people are just lazily dying, but you went out there and you fucking died, and I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
the force that killed you was compelling.
Even in death, all we want is praise. Like, even when we know,
Yeah,
just let me
it's
know that
so
was a good.
embarrassing.
No, I think it's. I love the honesty of it. I think it's. I know that. I mean, it's a dark podcast, but so like the Challenger explosion, absolutely horrendous, and also terrible because like it happened like when I was in middle school, and I have a memory of it being on TV. Now
It
I don't,
was.
but I have a. I don't. I remember being in the auditorium and watching this, and I don't know, like my mind being. I don't know if this is a memory like I've been told. It's one of those things that it's far enough away that I'm like, I think I remember this, or I think I remember about people talking about this.
Yeah,
But regardless, honestly, this sounds awful, and this is without disrespect. It feels like not like a totally great way to die.
right?
And this is what I'm like. You're doing this thing, and I'm sure it's terrifying. I'm sure like they're so scared, but like it's also an amazing,
It's
an,
for
an
a
ama-
purpose.
it's for yes, and you're breaching the atmosphere in a fucking rocket, and then it's done. So like, there's also
Yeah,
no pain and no warning. So
yeah.
I mean, do you think there's
Do
pain?
you
Is it?
know it wasn't an explosion? They didn't
Uh,
die in the explosion. They
n-
died upon impact in the water.
no, I didn't know. Okay, just got worse, Sam. Just got worse. In my mind, I was like, it's
I
a good
mean,
way to go. It's like
some of
I
them may have
justify.
died in the explosion, but at least a few of them, in order to like deploy this one emergency thing that was deployed but not fully done, it means that they were conscious after the fuel canister part of it exploded, or part of it leaked and just
Uh,
put it off course and then exploded. But there was that explosion that looks like it got everything, but then just
yeah, yeah.
the compartment they were in just plummeted back to earth and got crushed in the ocean.
And
Um
I thought my vision was dark, and you made it darker with the truth.
which is
Uh,
awful too, like, but also within a couple minutes. So, I
but a
mean, those are bad
couple
minutes.
minutes, like couple. Do you hate flying? Do you have a fear of flying?
I I used to not, but then I went through a weird phase where I listened to black box tapes a lot. of
Too.
really, you can find them of very ill-fated. There was
Uh,
oh there is yeah, there's a lot to be found. There's fucked up shit. I don't it speaks poorly towards me that I wanted to listen to this, but just like there's a lot of just the last moments of people's lives are just, oh shit, or like pull up, and it's done. Or
I will say one thing. It does. I honestly, I think you're being too hard on yourself. I don't think it thinks poorly. I speaks poorly. Of you. I think it comes from a place of, don't we kind of want to know, like, it in either in preparation or in avoidance. Like, there's some. I can't
yeah.
imagine it's just. I mean, if you're doing it and like fucking masturbating, then maybe that's a thing to think about. But like, and again, no judgment. But my point is like, if you're doing it like, it's such a to be the only conscious species,
Hmm.
to know you're going to die. I tell my dog every day. My dog does not refuses to listen, refuses to learn. Um, that that seems so natural to like want to know, because no one can
Yeah.
tell us. So
It's odd that I feel like it like makes me less lonely to experience these lonely moments of parting with, this mortal coil, of like listening to like, oh man, there was this one Japanese flight that went for 30 minutes after the first engine failed. They had one engine on one of the wings, and the pilot was so talented that he managed to keep the airplane in flight. And there's a picture someone took of the cabin or of the main compartment of a stewardess like leaning over and helping someone from while they were in distress, because they were in distress for like, 20, 30 minutes, and it survived the wreck. And so you can
Mhm.
look at it and just be like, at the time, I feel like I would take a picture and be like, we're going to be okay. Because I've got this picture of like what's going on. Like it's,
Yeah.
like you have these little things that are like, it's going to be okay because the stewardess looks calm, because the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, no one fucking knows.
No, but, is it better to lie to yourself that it's going to be okay because even if you know it's a lie, because rather than going, "No one knows, it could happen any moment, any moment, any moment, any moment," is not a way to get through anything.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's 90% of being a human is I'm planning the future. In 5 minutes, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And then in
Yeah.
10 minutes, I'm going to go watch a TV show. Like, we don't know.
Yeah. Yes, it is this weird thing. I've always thought like like Eckhart Tolle or anybody who's like, I live in the now, live in the now. If I find out they have a fucking retirement account, I'm like, you're a liar. This is not, and I know that's like a very reductive view of that philosophy, but um, that's what I'm saying. Those 30 minutes on a plane, and that's why like that type of death where it's like 30 minutes. I've always thought
Hmm.
like I would just take whatever Xanax I have
Yeah.
and try to kill myself with Xanax
Hmm.
on the plane because like
Yeah.
that would probably be better. But I can't
But do you
imagine
pack
those.
that much?
I'm gonna have to start picking my Google history is how much Xanax to die airplane crash. Earl Hikers, radiation Yeti. It's just the most banana stuff. No, but I that's why like planes scare me. Like those are the ones that don't explode. Like death that's certain, but that it's not. You still got enough time to really think about what's gonna happen.
Ooh, when those Boeing planes, that one model of
Yeah,
Boeing
the
was
max. Yeah,
fritzing? Yeah. What was happening, and sorry if I'm mansplaining, but like was the MCAS system was there's a specific automated computer system that will tilt the nose of the plane down in order to stop the plane from going tipping up to like 90 degrees and then falling straight out of the sky.
yeah.
But the PIOT system, and PIOTs are the little sensors that are below the plane or like part of the plane, they I think there was a dysfunction either between the PIOT system and the MCAS system, or somewhere in that mix, and the MCAS system was overactive, so it would start pushing the plane nose down. But this wasn't trained into the pilots,
Yeah.
the ones, like it just
They weren't
wasn't
told, weren't they? Weren't they? So they were like trying to pull it back up, and wasn't it
yeah.
fighting them the whole time? Like,
Yes, the whole time. So it would just
oh,
be down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and like at harder and harder intervals, and then just
oh,
straight down. Yeah, so that would be a fucking nightmare. But there's one of those planes that did go down the day before with a different pilot. There was a pilot sitting along, like a pilot that just wanted to go from A to B and was sitting in the cabin, and he knew how to disable the MCAS system
mhm.
because that started happening on that flight, on the same plane that the next day crashed. But on this day, they just happened to have this guy in there who was like, "Oh, you do this," and then they were able to turn it off. And then the next day, they didn't have someone in the
Oh
cabin
my
who knew
god.
how to turn it off. Yeah.
I'm gonna start thinking about this when I'm nervous about an audition. By that I mean, I'm like, do you really think this matters? Are you on a fucking plane that's going down because the MCAS system? So let's calm it down that we're not gonna get juror number 7, okay? I don't think it's a big fucking deal. Um,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, our lives are very silly.
they're just it's so hard to like realize it's all very silly and yet to still care about it is the
Yeah.
balance that I struggle with constantly of like it's a joke, but we have to treat it like it's not.
Yeah.
And that's a tough balance. It's a tough
And that I
balance.
think is the balance that I'm confronted with when I think about if I want a silly death or not. Like, do I want a fun ass death, or do I want to just die of old age?
Yeah,
I
you can
don't know
have
if I
both.
want to. I guess, right? Like, I think maybe the happy medium is doing what like Hunter S. Thompson did and just went like, I'm gonna have a death and then I'm gonna have a silly burial at space, right? Didn't he
Uh,
have his
uh,
remains like
he did. Johnny Depp shot him in, like, spent $1 million to shoot him in space.
oh my
Um,
god.
but he put a gun in. I mean, Hunter S. Thompson put a shotgun in his mouth. So I don't.
Okay, bad example.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure he did. I mean, he was like 60 something, and he
This checks
shot.
out.
But I always assumed that like he was just like, I have cancer and I'm gonna die. No, I don't think so. This is how I'm going
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
I want to. So the maker tells you then it is actually, and thank you for your curiosity. It was magic. They died from, and fully earnestly, they died of a magical force. It's kind of something that's tough to explain. That's accessible only to fairies and nymphs, and those nymphs and fairies used it, and they killed the 9 hikers. Does this feel better to you? What does this make you feel?
You know what would feel the best, and I don't know why.
No.
Would what would feel the best would be if it was a military test of something,
Uh,
because I think I could buy into that. Like if it was fairies, I'd be like, great, okay. I mean, it opens a lot of. I've got a lot of questions.
mhm.
Um, why are do they if they don't if they eat people, why do they live there, and why haven't we heard of them before? And like, just
Mm.
there's a lot,
I love that you have a
but
lot of logical questions about the magic answer. Well, let's see here. This is not cogent, so
I guess I like require logic and I just yearn for magic, but I
yeah, yeah.
require logic. Like it makes sense for it to be some kind of military test because it's so isolated. It was a part of high tension between two world powers.
Mhm.
Like it would only make sense like and yet I'm not like, oh God, I hope those like 20 somethings died because of the USSR. Like, it's not like I hope, but it's also like I've heard what like I took like a epidemiology class in college about like what the United States and what Russia were doing
Mhm.
for biological like weapons at that time, and like we're fucking no holds barred. Like we're like making chimera viruses with smallpox. Anyway, this is when you realize I'm a fucking nut. Like,
No, not at all. But so the military. Okay, so the maker says to you, it was a
mhm.
military test, and what happened was
Yeah.
we were creating a virus that we had actually released in that part to see how quickly it would kill people, like in that elevation or whatnot.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
would be the most gratifying answer to you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I don't know if that just speaks to me wanting to give humanity some form of agency over chaos of like we were able to create this thing we couldn't even ourselves explain, but like it being something unexplainable that we didn't have any role in is less satisfying to me than we had a role in, and by we just like humans had a role in
Yeah.
this, but it wasn't necessarily in our control at the end of it. Like
Does that make
maybe
you feel safer or less safe?
the same safe. I don't
Uh,
know.
Maybe safe
uh
is not the right word, but like, why do you prefer that humans made it as opposed to an unnatural?
I think that there's more atonement in that as a species of like it's a tragedy that young humans died, and it's fucked up that it was because of humans, versus it's a tragedy that young humans died and it's arbitrary because of the world we live in. I'd
Yeah.
rather something be fucked up than arbitrary, but I don't. That's just me looking for symmetry where there isn't any.
Uh, I like that. That I'd rather it be fucked up than arbitrary. Is a it's a great tattoo, and I'm putting on I don't know what part of my body, but it is. Uh, I really enjoy that. Fortunately, you haven't passed away. So that's great.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So
Oh my
you
god, thank you.
really so happy for you.
Oh my god,
Is
me
there
too.
is there anything? Do you have any final thoughts for me about this, or about anything that has come up as a result of this?
I guess I'm just interested in what you'd want to know. And I'm sure that other guests have asked you this, but
No, and it varies. Literally every time someone
yeah.
asks. So
Yeah.
there are times when it is, please tell what happened in Dallas in 1963? Like, what happened? I wanna
Yeah.
know exactly, was the CIA involved? Um,
Uh-huh.
Today it is, what is the very best I could have done with my life? What was, like,
Oh.
where could I have been? What would have been, like, the peak for me had I done things better? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do, but I feel
I'm not
like the
what are you saying?
Oh, I was just gonna say that I feel like the person you're talking to would be like, "There's a lot of qualifiers I have to ask about here." Like,
Oh, yeah, and I wanna go through okay, yeah, so just what was the most successful I could have been? Okay, what is the, hottest partner I could have been with? Like, even, like, really, like,
yeah.
just egotistical stuff,
What
like
is the flashiest house? What's the
yeah,
biggest pool? What's
yeah,
the dumbest car? Yeah,
I
totally.
just it feels like we're essentially trying to run this test, right? Of let's do pretty well in all the places that we can in our lives. Do you know what I'm saying? And then some people choose to focus on one aspect and they get really good, and then like, and others choose to really kind of half-ass all of it. And I kind of feel like I'm in that category. So I kind of feel like, what if I actually had applied myself? What would have happened if I had?
Or
Yeah,
if we were born into a society that wasn't capitalism and shit. Like,
yeah.
what if yeah, I mean, I what if I would want to know what is a happy version of me?
That's the last person I spoke with was a could I have even been a happy person? Was kind of what we're getting.
Really?
Like, is that like would it have, what if it, or the question was, um, would it have been possible for me not to have been depressed my whole life?
Oh
Uh,
man.
like, I think those are, yeah, I mean, that's,
I mean, I think about the Dyatlov Pass incident to avoid thinking about shit like that. Like I
uh
go, oh yeah, 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 yeah. But what happened to these 9 hikers in 1959? You
huh.
know, like
But what about you, Anne? I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm gonna go with the
I'm good. I'm good. Have you heard of Japan Flight 123? Yeah. Just
Yeah, but I think both of those. That's why it's kind of why I kind of like the question is. There's also times when it's just like I want to know who had a crush on me that I didn't know about, like really
oh
pointless stuff.
yeah,
They don't. They're not
yeah.
always so dark, but I tend to live in a lot of dark places, so a lot of them are judgmental. But also, I would love to know what happened to that Malaysia flight that disappeared, because fucking
Uh-huh.
terrifying. Like, you're just flying and then
Horrifying.
your flight's gone and it's over the ocean in the middle of the night. It's like there's no scarier thing to be.
Yeah. No, it's truly a nightmare. Yes. I mean, what a beautiful introspection to ask if you could be happier, or what that would be like. I love that. That's a beautiful thing to look into.
Is it, or is it just like, well, I'm not that happy. I guess I'll wait until I die until I talk to this maker who I do not believe in to see if there's something I could have done.
Hopefully,
Um,
I'm a bug next.
yeah.
Yeah, just
Oh,
like
bugs are so damn happy. I'm telling you,
they
when
seem
my
so
dog,
happy.
so my dog is digging her hole even after she poops. She's just full of joy. What is that like? Would you say you're
I
mostly
know.
happy, or like if you had to go on a scale, where would you put your happiness?
Um, I don't. I'd say I'm mostly anxious and
Mhm,
or excited for the next thing.
mhm.
Anxious for slash excited for the next thing. So it's not good. I feel like happiness requires being present, and that's that's not
I
necessarily
don't
where
do
I'm
any of
at.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 I don't fuck with that. But if you want to talk about
Oh,
happiness,
look at
her
that!
little tongue is out so far.
Look at your little face. She's see those teeth. She's got no teeth in there. She's got to
She's
keep
got
that
no teeth.
the tongue keeps flapping out. And
Yeah,
you are
that's the nice thing
amazing.
about dogs.
Thank you so
Oh,
much
thank
for your
you.
time.
Thanks for having me. This was lovely.